Good afternoon. Sure has been a while. This league I've been playing Cast on Crit in many different forms, and this is the one that stayed alive the longest, and I'm quite enjoying it. It starts out very, very cheap, which is brilliant, because we use some silly items. But first, let's just talk about the whole point of the build. The idea is we use chain. It's very, very good, and everyone disagrees with me on this point, and I have no idea why. I think perhaps it might be broken. I think when you chain a cast on crit attack, it might override the cast on crit cooldown. But we'll talk about it another time. It's not a big deal. So I do have upgrades for this build hanging out in my inventory, and they may feature later on in the video, but I've downgraded heavily for this video to prove a point. It's meant to be cheap. Not everyone can afford a 6-link, whatever those things are. So instead of a 6-link, whatever those things are, we've got ourselves a 5-link, which I accidentally chaosed to be pretty good. But okay, you can have any old 5-link, it doesn't matter, just ignore it, okay. We've got Storm Prisons, which are pretty cool, we'll talk about those in a minute. And the stuff that I haven't changed, a Star Conyers. It's a nice defensive crit item, just helps us get a bit more consistent and stay alive a little longer. Facebreakers, which does the opposite. It doesn't give us any extra crit, but gives us a lot more multi. Somehow Reflect isn't scary, but I don't know. And the Storm Prisons, like I said, I'd talk about those. These aren't very common items, so it bears to go over the stats a little bit. They don't have any extra crit, so they're only 8%. They don't have any extra attack speed, so they're only 1.5. It's not a big deal, they're fine. The chance to gain a power charge on kill saves us a link. We don't need any power charge on crit anywhere, and we don't need to curse Assassin's Mark to stay topped up, anything like that. And the +1 maximum power charge brings us to 8 total, which is ridiculous, and that lets us get very close to capped crit, or get very high crit at least, and have very consistent damage very, very cheaply, which was brilliant for early in the league. The passive tree. First off, super important. Of course, we're dual wielding and we're going crit. There's no reason ever you wouldn't take Twin Terrors. It's out of this world. It's crazy. Everyone knows. The rest of the tree follows a similar pattern as well. We have crit, we have crit, we have crit, we have crit, etc., etc. It goes on. Also aiding this, the 2 power charges, bringing us up to 8. Not really feasible to get the other one, unfortunately, but maybe we'll figure it out later. Also, on the way to all this crit and power charges, we've gotten ourselves a lot of life. I don't know how it happened, it just happened by accident, but I've got about 182%, and I think I've taken all the life I'm planning on. So that's pretty good. And because I'm such a high level, I'm going into spell crit now. So I've picked up Doomcast, and I've picked up Spell Critical Strike Chance, which of course will lead to Annihilation sooner or later. And the only dual slot planned that isn't required for the build to be quite so crazy is this one here, which just has a cheap little duel in it that isn't all that good. No, maybe that wasn't cheap. Either way, it wasn't all that good, it's not that important. I might get more dual slots later because my regearing has made my crit pretty insane, so unspec out of this and take this, for instance, something like that. But the other dual slots are filled with Volley Fire. This isn't super common either as far as I know, so additional 2 projectiles simultaneously fire on the first barrage, first and last projectile of barrage. And because I've got 2 of those, this means I fire 5 projectiles, then 1, and then another 5, bringing the total amount of proc chances from 4 per shot to 12, which is pretty good. There is a possibility to fit another one in here somewhat easily between Ranger and Shadow, but it doesn't seem to be necessary. I'm toying with the idea of taking this one out as well and pathing more efficiently, but it works. I'm leaving it as it is. So, what else have we got? The links. So first off, obviously, Barrage. The quality on here is incidental, you don't need that. Next up, also obviously, Cast on Crit. There isn't any quality on most of my gems, and this is just because I was poor when I was making the build, so I haven't got gems. I didn't have money to buy the gems with quality on them. But it does help to sort of prove a point. You don't need it. It's fine. It's cheap. Chain. This is part of the build that's really, really good. I talked about this at the beginning. Everyone says I'm wrong. I don't care. And because I'm on a 5 link, I've put myself 2 spells in here. Bladefall and Firestorm. These may seem strange choices given the rest of the stuff, but we did pass through some incidental AoE damage, and Blast Radius isn't the plan. And the other thing is, Chain doesn't support them, so the 33% less damage doesn't nerf their damage at all. It just makes them cast 3 times as much. So, I haven't been able to find a better gem in this slot than Chain. Pierce doesn't triple the proc chance at all. In fact, it doesn't seem to do anything. Another spell that definitely doesn't do triple the damage. And I'm sure I tried something else, but I forgot it. So, what else we got? The buffs, of course. So, Herald of Thunder, just because I've got space, why not? Warlord's Mark on Blasphemy. This kind of feels bad early on, because the radius is so small, but it works out okay later. It does cause strength problems, but you can fix that with a heavy belt and an amulet, an Amber Amulet. It works out okay. This is mostly just to sustain your mana. There's probably a better way around it, but I haven't put any thought to it yet because this works just fine. Also, again, saving us a link. We don't need to link Life Leech because if we ever need anything, we just walk closer to what's dying in fire. Finally, Arctic Armor. I did have another Herald here, but it's really not necessary. I decided to break into higher maps, be more defensive, and pick up something useful. There's probably a way to drop Herald of Thunder as well and put on, I don't know, Grace or something defensive. But I haven't put much thought to that yet either. So, let's go and find out what a map looks like. We've got a tier 5 here, nice and easy. At level 83 it shouldn't pose a problem. Famous last words. As we can see, it turns into somewhat of a PowerPoint presentation, but that's the point. It works out better when you're not recording, of course. Okay, so this works okay. Good afternoon, Salt Conduit. How are you doing? Let's get rid of this guy so we can actually speak. So, our tooltips, which are useful for comparing damage to your own build, not other people's. 925 and 2,200. That's pretty appreciable. Around about 3,100 damage per proc. But let's switch to what I run normally. There's a mystery blue gem in this 6 link, and we'll see if you can guess what it is. Ah, there was the secret just displayed. We have other wands which give +1 power charge. This build scales really well on money. So here we actually hit crit cap with power charges, and the tooltips of the spells goes absolutely crazy too. So let's pick up some power charges and just take a look. We are at 2,300 on Firestorm alone, 5,800 on Bladefall, with literally just a 1 swap and some rings that don't suck. The other blue gem in the 6 link was, of course, power charge on crit. It does mean that if you want to go void batteries, I mean, you've got a lot of money, you probably should get a 6 link, but you can also have a 5 link and just drop one of the spells. Bladefall does fantastically. Firestorm, I feel, does better. When you support things with caps on crit, their tooltip changes to be an average damage, and it calculates that instead, because that's more useful to know. However, Firestorms already is average damage, so I feel like it might get magnified by being cast on crit with such frequency. So, that's how the build works. It's pretty crazy if you've got a lot of money. I've been doing up to tier 8s so far, I've not been running very high, but it's ridiculous. The Torture Chamber boss just dies instantly, the Terrace boss dies instantly. Nothing's posed a problem to me yet, such that I'd even dip into my health reserve. In fact, I've not rolled proper potions, I don't have a warding, I've got hallowed flasks, and it's really not a big deal. It destroys absolutely everything for free. I would highly recommend it.